Commission. We start our meeting every year with an election of officers. But to start, Donna, could you call the roll, please?
Woody Emmons.
Here.
Sam Cressy.
Here.
Drew Johnson.
Here.
Dale Freeman. Kathy White Gaddage.
Here.
Mike Portalese.
Here.
Chris Torty.
Here.
Very good. First to introduce staff, on my left is Donna Burkhart, our secretary. Next to her is Shad Annis, our associate planner. On the far right, we have Derek Spear, our city planner, and Krista Hill, our senior planner. I am Ken Prince, I'm the director. And our first order of business is the election of officers. Do we have a nomination for president of the City Planning Commission?
Mr. Chair, I would like to nominate Chris Torty as president.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Everybody.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any other nominations? If not, all those in favor of electing Chris Torty as president of the Planning Commission signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Mr. President, the meeting is all yours.
Thank you. And thank you all. I really appreciate another year to serve on this committee and with all you fine people and some new people. We have two new Drews on board. We have Drew Cash down here to the right, and we have Drew Johnson over here to my left. So welcome to the committee, and thank you very much for serving. We really appreciate it. It means a lot to have good people on this committee, and we're very happy to have you. So thank you very much. The next order of business is Vice President. I would like to open nominations for Vice President.
I nominate Woody Emmons for Vice President.
Can you do that at being on the council?
I'll second that nomination.
Ken, is that appropriate?
Yep. Great. We have a first and a second. Is there any other nominations? All those in favor of Woody Emmons as Vice President, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. We couldn't have a more experienced person do that. So really appreciate your experience on here and the things that you do from the council. And also the council's perspective in this means a lot. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for everybody's vote. Appreciate that.
And next, we need a nomination for the BZA representation. Is there a nomination for that? I currently serve in that role and was just elected chairperson of that role in the previous meeting. Is there any nominations for that?
I'll nominate Chris Torty to be a representative.
Second.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. Is there any other nominations for BZA representation? Nope. Then all those in favor of Chris Torty as a BZA representative, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I'll do that willingly for another year. So that's great. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate that. Rules of procedure are, before we do that, I do want to appoint the staff. All those in favor of reappointing the current staff to this committee, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the current staff has been retained. Thank you. And we couldn't have a better staff, so thank you all very much. We're really appreciative for everything that you do. Rules of procedure are up on the board, my right and left and up in front of me. First, we'll have a presentation by the petitioner. For each item, we'll ask those participating in the room to speak first, followed by those participating online. Then we will hear those who wish to speak in favor of the request, then those against the request. If you're not sure whether you're speaking in favor or against the request and you just have questions, I suggest you come up during the against the request portion. We'll accumulate all of our questions that we have, and then we'll do a right of rebuttal by the petitioner. We'll close the public hearing. We'll have a commission discussion, then a commission vote. The previous month's minutes, December, were distributed to the commissioners. Were there any corrections, additions, or changes to those minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving those minutes say aye.
Aye.
And those pass. Is there any conflict of interest on any agenda items by any of the commissioners tonight? None? Okay. That brings us to the first item on the agenda, which is a resolution. Resolution 24-01. Okay, I've read this in advance and it's a mouthful, so bear with me. A resolution of the City of Mishawaka Plan Commission approving a resolution of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana Redevelopment Commission, which approved amendments to the declaratory resolution and the economic development plans for the Consolidated Area Improvement Project. Ken gets to talk about this, so.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the commission, Ken Prince, Director of Planning and Community Development. I want to first provide some background. So what you're asked to act on this evening is only a resolution concerning the financing. This project, as many of you know, goes back to, I believe, 2016 as a planned unit development. It has been multiple phases. I believe this is the third phase of the development. And what you're being asked for this evening is only to approve this resolution, which is one of the steps in the process to approve the financing for the project. You have another item this evening regarding the modification of the PUD, which is a completely separate issue than the financing. So in December, our City Redevelopment Commission approved a development agreement with the developer on essentially partnering on the development. And what is unique about it is that they are proposing a tax increment financing district. The majority of the property is already in our consolidated tax increment financing district. But back when Menards was being proposed, they purchased a portion of property from the city. That was expanded and now is being included in what is called Block 200, which is the center portion of the development. Chad, if you could pull that, I know this is out of order, but from the Grandview file, just the overall map that shows that area, that would be helpful. But in short, creating a new tax increment financing district is from a procedural standpoint, is a complex issue. Our special bond counsel, Barnes and Thornburg, for the project, this is the council representing the city, identified the calendar and the steps needed to form that new tax increment financing district for the funding that was associated with that development agreement. And in that, I believe it identified 21 different steps that you have to do in order to do that. One of those steps, and this is part of the brilliance, sometimes you look at the Indiana Code, you think they are crazy, and sometimes you think they are brilliant, and I'll call them brilliant this time because ultimately what they wanted to ensure was that anything that is being done at this level for that type of financing, which is essentially collecting the tax revenue from that area and investing it back in that project, is consistent with the long-term plans of the city, whether that be the comprehensive plan, a specific PUD, or the like. So what you're being asked this evening as part of this resolution is just concurrence that the plans match our long-term plans for the city. You're not being asked to approve the financing. The financing will be ultimately approved both by the Common Council and the Redevelopment Commission as part of a future action should they decide to approve it and move forward. You're only being asked is if this plan is appropriate for the area. And again, it goes back when the original PUD was approved for the area. The area that's outlined is where the tax revenue would be collected from that area and reinvested back into the project. The remaining TIF area, as it is currently allocated, and by the area, I mean the area outlined in yellow. I know there's multiple hash marks on the drawing, but the area in yellow, so that, for example, the outlots, the future development area along the road frontages is not included in that new TIF area, and the townhouses located to the west are also not included in that TIF area. So I've tried to abbreviate what you're being asked to consider this evening. We obviously have the developers and legal counsel in the room if you do have any questions specifically on the project at this point in time. But again, regarding the resolution, this is only regarding the financing of the project and that the plans are consistent with the long-term city goals for the area. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions for our executive director? Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. Mike,
Is-
did you have a question? I'm sorry, did you?
No.
No, okay.
Shaking
I'm
my head,
sorry.
no.
Okay, okay, great.
He just assumed you would have had a question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the room or online wishing to speak in favor of Resolution 24-01? Hearing none, is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition to Resolution 24-01? Mr. City Planner, is there any additional information on this?
No further information.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Is there any members that wish to speak on this? If not, I will take a motion on this resolution.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 24-01 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Second was Woody. Yes. Donna, would you please call for the vote?
Chris Jamrose?
Yes.
Drew Cash?
Yes.
Woody Emmons?
Yes.
Sam Cressy?
Yes.
Drew Johnson?
Yes.
Kathy White Gaddage?
Yes.
Mike Portalese?
Yes.
Chris Torty?
Yes, and Resolution 24-01 will move to the council with a unanimous favorable rating. Okay, that brings us to the next item on the agenda, Petition 23-27, a request submitted by 1635 Ironwood LLC requesting to amend the 12th and Capital Plan Unit development by allowing fueling stations as allowed in C10 filling station commercial and the parking standards for C1 general commercial. Hello.
Thanks, President, members of the commission. As stated here, we're seeking to amend the current PUD.
Can we get your name and
Oh,
address?
excuse me, Steve Ruby, Admarsh Consulting, 315 West Jefferson. Apologize. As stated in the petition, we're representing the 1635 Ironwood LLC petitioner. They are requesting to allow for a C-store, convenience store, gas station at this location. As you recall, roughly about a year ago, we amended the same PUD to allow for a scooters or a drive-through facility here. This is adjacent to the site just to the west. As this site has developed, it's also now lured other potential developers here. So they're asking for the use of a C-store gas station at this location. So that is what is being requested of today or considered for approval. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Ruby? None? Nope. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else online or in the room wishing to speak in favor of petition 23-27? Hearing none, is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition to petition 23-27?
Tom Bradamus, and I'm the president of Center Management Corporation and the owner of Eastgate Lakeside Apartments, which is right next door to what they are planning. Lakeside has 48 units and 117 residents. Eastgate has 96 units and 128 residents. My objection is that it's right next to these apartments. There would be noise pollution, light pollution, potential issues with waste and water. There's already a gas station across the street. There's 3 gas stations within a half a mile. Within 6 miles, there's 6 of them within 2 miles. And I think it's an oversaturation in a gas station. And I did have a handout if you want to see the proximity and my thoughts. Do I give this to somebody, Ken, or? Well, yeah, these are the gas stations within range. These are there's the property, the gas station, and then there's an Oak Street. think we have enough gas stations around.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming up. Well, is there any questions for Mr. Bradamus on this?
Sir, are you opposed to any type of development of that property or simply the filling station?
The filling station, it'll have lights on. I don't know if it's going to be a 24-hour one or what, but it just seems like in a couple-mile area, there's plenty of gas stations. And there's one right directly across the street.
You know, my thought is Dollar General and the sort would have the same type of issues but not be a filling station. Would you have the same objection?
They probably wouldn't be open 24 hours, and they probably wouldn't have as much traffic, I suppose.
But would you still object?
I don't believe so.
Because the lights would still be on 24 hours, so I'm trying to kind of zone
Well-
into your objection.
I'm trying to keep the peaceful, quiet for 200 and almost 50-some people.
Okay. Has your community met and as a group decided for you to be here tonight?
No, I received the mailer in the mail and started doing a little research, and it's not my favorite thing to do, but thought I'd come and voice my opinion today.
Sure, we appreciate that.
Mr. Bradamus, we appreciate that. Is there, Woody, you've got a question?
You said you got the notice, but did you share that with all the residents to see what their opinion was?
I did not. I'm not sure how long ago I got it, just last week or something?
I don't know. I'm just asking, when you got it. if
No,
you-
I did not.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Spear, were there any additional remonstrance letters submitted? No. Okay. Thank you. We're actually going to have the petitioners come up and answer some of the questions. Is there anybody else that wished to speak against petition 23-27? Hearing none, we'll have a right of rebuttal. Come on up and talk a little bit about noise, light, and wastewater, which he had questions
You
on.
can pull up the site plan again. That would be great. Looking at this C-store development here, we would still meet the intended standards for any development that would be here. On the north property line, there would be a fence, 7-foot opaque fence that would help screen that view between the C-store gas station and the properties to the north, as well as to the west. Additional to that, there's a landscape buffer requirement that is in this as well that would also be required. Stormwater storage would be addressed through the basins to the west. There's currently a basin there. We'll look at the sizing and requirements for that to ensure that that meets those requirements. As far as the light pollution concern that is there, city requirements require that there's a cutoff at the property lines so that there's not overspill for the lights. As well as any other development that go in there, we'd still have the parking, we'd still have those needs. But the intent is to meet all the other additional requirements within the development standards.
Thank you. Mr.
Can you,
Portelis.
can you expand on additional use of the property, convenience store, car wash?
There'd be other retail developments that could be going there. It could be a range of offices, it could be business park elements. So there's just a various amount of uses that can go into this.
But I mean specific to the filling station, will it also be a convenience store? Or,
Yes, it would be convenience store, correct.
Okay. Car wash on property?
I don't believe car wash, no.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Ruby? Thank you for the right of rebuttal.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I just wanted to provide some additional information. I'm not speaking for or against the item, but because we have a few new members, I just wanted to represent one of the things that we don't do in terms of a city is determine how many of something that we have. So, for example, a new hotel or a new restaurant would come in. There are specific findings, as you are noted in the staff report, that we have to determine. But as a city, we don't determine the number of hotels or the number of restaurants. It's the free market that does that. So I just wanted to elaborate on the point. Although Mr. Bradamus identified and you saw the number of gas stations, we're not the experts on how many gas stations you need to service 50,000 people in the city, and that's really where that is coming from. Regarding the uses that are permitted, essentially C1 general commercial uses are permitted on the property right now. So you could actually build a 24-hour convenience store on the property by right now. You just couldn't have the fueling pumps. So to give a perspective of what is being asked this evening, that I think that's an important note. C1 also permits a bar, a restaurant, a tobacco store, and many other what I would call general higher intensity commercial uses on the property. So that's just an FYI, not in support or in opposition, but just because the question was asked. Thank you.
Great clarification. Thank you.
I was going to ask that question, so you answered it before I asked it.
Very good. Okay.
So I do have a question, though. So there are a lot of gas stations, and so if we get an overabundance of gas stations, the way to stop it is at these meetings?
No. So again, that was the point I was making earlier. It's not our role as government to determine. There's a certain ebb and flow to free market competition. So, for example, we don't determine the number of new housing developments that are being developed, number of new hotels. And I'll use hotels as an example. So we have new hotels come in and somebody has an older product. It's not our job to determine what's the best hotel, what the best price is, and how many are doing. And if you're not reinvesting in your property, you're likely going to be going out of business. And you can see that with convenience stores as well. As new product is developed, they offer new products, new incentives, and the older gas stations, I can tell you in my tenure with the city, we've demolished a number of them. It's not our job to keep them in business in terms of selling fuel. That's the private market that does that.
Right. But the gas stations do have possible ground. I know there's different standards now than there were before, but I know the older gas stations, there ends up being ground pollution from, there's a difference between a gas station and a hotel as for down the road and what problems there could be with.
And we've experienced much of that groundwater contamination on the older tanks. But
Right.
if you have questions in that regard, I'd recommend talking to the applicant.
I
and
know,
directing
I
those
know,
questions.
I
Yeah,
know it's
right.
different now. I know
Right.
there's a lot more safety issues. There's a lot more safety.
So our office does do weights and measures, and we do get complaints, and so there is and I don't want to get into the technicality, and they can elaborate further on it, but there are double wall tanks, and so there's space in between that, and there's sensors that go off if any of the petroleum gets from one of the tanks to that second level tank. In terms of notification, they are notified immediately of that break, if you will.
Yeah, I know Family Express went over that with us
Right.
when they put
Right.
their gas station in,
Correct.
on
Yep.
all the safety measures that are taken. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other questions?
I don't believe so. Any other questions for Executive Director? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Great comments, and we appreciate your clarification there. So with that, I'm going to close the public hearing, and then, is there any additional information, Mr. Spear? Okay, then, any commissioners wish to speak on petition 23-27? Thoughts, comments? Then I'll take a motion on the petition.
Make a motion for approval of petition 2327?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Second was Sam Cressy. Donna, would you please call for the vote?
Chris Jamrose? Yes. Drew Cash?
Yes.
Woody Emmons?
Yes.
Sam Cressy?
Yes.
Drew Johnson?
Yes.
Kathy White Gaddage?
Yes.
Mike Portalese?
Yes.
Chris Torty?
Yes, and petition 23-27 will move to the council with a unanimous favorable rating. Okay, that brings us to the next item, which is petition 23-28, and I have some added verbiage that I'm going to add to this that was changed. But as written, a request submitted by Gumwood Acquisitions LLC requesting to amend the Grandview Phase 3 planned unit development for an increased building height of 69 feet, reduced parking setback 6 feet, and pavement/drive aisle setback 0 feet, and outdoor open spaces for various uses. Note before we get into discussion in the report, there's an item there, and I'm going to read you the additional information that is going to be on there, so we're talking about this appropriately. So on the outdoor open space portion of this request, for hotel reception areas, banquet and other gathering spaces, entertainment, food trucks, retail marketing, and food/beverage service, the space shall not be utilized for ticketed events available to the general public. What's added into this verbiage is other than connection with operations of the buildings adjacent to such space, and the space shall not have a drive-through restaurant. So that wording is how we should discuss this. I wanted to make sure that was in there for the record. Is there somebody here to present this petition? Hopefully there is after all that.
Could I ask you to pass out these booklets? Mr. Chairman, members of the Plan Commission, my name is Stephen Studer. I'm an attorney with the law firm Retrieve DeVault with offices at 4101 Edison Nix Parkway here in Mishawaka, 46545. I'm here this evening on behalf of Gumwood Acquisitions LLC, which is the developer of the Grandview Development Project at State Road 23 and Gumwood. With me this evening are Ms. Audra Saradsky and Richard Dio, both representing the developers, Gumwood Acquisitions, along with Daryl Knipp of Abbott Marsh, who will be able to address any of the site plan issues you might have, particularly the parking variances. So we're here this evening seeking amendments to the Grandview PUD, which was adopted 9 years ago. And this is the first amendment that we've sought. And this is specifically for Phase 3 of the project. As you are well aware, Phases 1 and 2 have been completed. They've been very successful. We have several restaurants up there. This is now moving from the north down to the south. We're happy to discuss the 2 setback variances, but I think those are really kind of technical variances that deal with parking issues on the back. So with your permission, I'd like to talk about the 2 variances that we think are more substantive. One of them being the height variance and the other one being the activated green space. By the way, we did have a public meeting last evening. We had sent out 25, before the holidays, we sent out 25 individual invitations. We also had published it in the newspaper that we were having this meeting. We did have 2 residents show up. We had a very lengthy and good discussion. I don't know if you've seen the report by Mr. Spear, who also was in attendance on behalf of the city, but I think it would be fair to say, unless somebody would like to object, that both members of the neighbors that showed up that lived to the west of this property had no substantive concerns about this project and the 2 variances, the 4 variances we're seeking. They just wanted to know, actually at the end of it, how quickly could we start? So we specifically talked about the height variance, we talked about the activated green space, and went through that in great detail. So each of you has been given a booklet. I won't spend a lot of time on it, but Exhibit A basically is a summary of the key facts. This is a $175 million investment in the community, and it's going to include a high-end boutique hotel with a rooftop restaurant and other amenities, apartment and townhome residences. Exhibit D, for your information, is a press release that was issued by the developer that has all the details, the number of units. But the property that you'll see, we'll be talking about tonight, the enclaves, which are a for-sale product, are on the west side next to the neighborhood. The property we're seeking the variance on only applies to the hotel block. So the PUD amendments we're seeking are going from 48 feet in that hotel block only to 69 feet. Bless you. The other Phase 3 developments that you'll be seeing on the screen tonight and in the booklet will maintain a 48-foot height restriction. The 2 parking setbacks were what I talked about, and then the use limitations on this privately owned outdoor space. We're happy to say we have staff report for all of these. We're also happy to say that we think that these variances will have minimal or actually no impact on the neighbors. Exhibit B is a selection of slides that you may have already seen through the staff report. I would only ask that you look at page 4. You can look at all of them, obviously, but I'd like to focus on page 4, which is also, I believe, up on the, will be up on the screen, which is the same schematic you just saw for the resolution. Can you bring up the crosshatched one? I think it should be the next one. No, it shows the crosshatch that we used in the resolution as well.
This one.
This one here. Yeah, thanks. There you go. Thank you. So you see a bunch of crosshatches here. The only request we're seeking deals with the yellow crosshatch. There are two areas. The red crosshatch on the left are called the enclaves. They are a for-sale condominium project, and those are the ones that are near the neighborhood on the west side. We're only talking about the yellow portion that we want to raise the height from 48 feet to 69 feet. And everything else in this phase 3 that you see, we're not asking for any variances. We're going to maintain the 48-foot limit. So it only deals with that one block. And part of that is going to be surrounding a parking structure, as you've already heard. A parking garage is going to be surrounded by this. The other issue relates to the fact that we want a rooftop restaurant. This is a high-end boutique hotel that would essentially said they want a rooftop restaurant. If you add lobbies and hotels and you look at the bar, event space, the higher ceilings than we ordinarily would have, so we need the extra footage. And we also have some land elevations that creep across the eastern portion of the property. So we're going from 48 feet to 69 feet, but that's really for the benefit of the hotel to have a rooftop restaurant, which we think is an added amenity to the community. If you look at exhibit, I believe it's C, there's a really nice depiction, a linear depiction showing the whole project facing north. On the very far left, you'll see those are the neighborhood properties. The nearest property owned is just about 75 feet from the property line. They have a backyard. We have another 45 plus feet before we get to our first building. And of course, there'll be landscaping along this corridor to protect the neighborhoods. And there's a slide in here as well that demonstrates that. We're almost 3 football fields to the east before we get to the 69 feet. And as you also notice, we put in the background the new water tower, which is 150 feet. So we're actually at less than half of that, even with the increased height variance. As I mentioned, the reasons really are relating to the rooftop hotel, surrounding the parking structure that we'd like to have, and the high part of that. The petitioner, if you look at you can look at this slide, there's a little corner down there, which is we call activated green space. This is space that's going to be privately owned, is owned by the development. It's going to be adjacent to the hotel, and it's also going to be utilized by those adjacent property owners. So we've agreed to certain restrictions on that property. Now, there's also additional green space that we open to the general public all the time, which is on the corner. There's going to be some water features, and I think that's shown on one of the earlier slides. There's a water feature, et cetera, on the very corner. This is actually next to the hotel. Yeah, you can see the water feature to the bottom right side. And that's water feature and pathways and things of that nature. Immediately to the northwest of that is this activated green space. So the hotel might use this for charitable events, for instance, the Boys and Girls Club. They might use it for wedding parties. They might use it different ways. For the most part, it's going to be open to the public. We expect to have cafes, and we also are looking to have some kiosks. Kiosks are very popular in Europe and other places where they have these small little kiosks which sell, anything from coffee to pretzels, whatever it might be. And those will be open. But we've also agreed, by the way, at the request of the staff, that the total square footage of all those kiosks can't exceed 1,000 square feet. So we might have them up 250 feet, 3 or 4 of those, but they're not going to be big buildings. These are going to be freestanding kiosks, but we've limited those to 1,000 square feet. And so that's a use limitation on the development that we've agreed to. We've also agreed, as you've seen the language that the chairman read, we're also saying that this cannot be used for ticketed public events. In other words, I can't go there and say, I want to rent that space and use it for a Notre Dame football party, and I'm only going to let certain people in. It can only be used by the adjacent property owners for their events. It might be a wedding, it might be whatever it might be, but it can only be used by those people for ticketed events, so the general public doesn't get it. We've also agreed not to have any drive-through facility on that site as well. So we're happy with those restrictions. We've agreed to the language. We appreciate the staff working with us on coming up with language that made sense for the developer as well as for the city. So I think that unless there's questions, we would certainly seek your favorable recommendation to the council. And if you have any questions, happy to answer those.
Questions for Mr. Studer? No questions? Thank you. Very nice presentation and material.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the room wishing to speak in favor of petition 23-28? Is there anybody online wishing to speak in favor of petition 23-28? Is there any additional information, Mr. Spear?
No further information.
Okay, then we'll close the public hearing. And is there any commissioners that wish to speak? Oh,
I don't believe you asked for anybody opposed to the
Oh.
request.
you're right. I'm sorry. Sorry, I have too many notes here. Is there anybody in the room wishing to speak in opposition to petition 23-28? Is there anybody online wishing to speak in opposition to 23-28? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing again, and I will take a motion on this petition if there's no further discussion.
I
I make a
motion to
motion for
approve.
approval of petition 2328.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Donna, would you please call for the vote?
Chris Jamrose?
Yes.
Drew Cash?
Yes.
Woody Emmons?
Yes.
Sam Cressy?
Yes.
Drew Johnson?
Yes.
Kathy White Gaddich?
Yes.
Mike Portalese?
Yes.
And Chris Doherty.
Yes, and petition 23-28 will move to the council with a unanimous favorable rating. Thank you. That brings us to the next item, which is replat 23-07, a request submitted by Westview Capital LLC seeking approval of the 17-lot Autumn Ridge Phase 3, Section 1, first replat.
Good evening, Plan Commission members. Chris Godlewski, Abernmarsh, 315 West Jefferson Boulevard, South Bend, Indiana, 46601. Thank you for the positive staff recommendation. The two additions from the changes that were added, the staff recommended some labeling notes, and engineering asked for some overlay of the construction plans and the plat. Those were provided and received by the staff. This is a relatively minor change, even though there's 17 lots. Upon further review, it was sought that some of the easements on the rear yards were too small, and they had to match the infrastructure in place, which is storm sewer, whether it's drainage tiles or swales. So those were reviewed and approved by engineering, and that fits the situation better. And then at Fulmer and Falling Oak, there's an additional right-of-way dedication. It's for the sidewalk from the property line to the edge of the road. That's to accommodate the sidewalk on that portion of the road. And internal, there'll be sidewalks as well. So that just makes that connection. So really a simple request, and I hope you make favorable recommendation on this. I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Lesluski? No questions on this? Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else online or in the room wishing to speak in favor of replat 23-07? Is there anybody in the room or online wishing to speak in opposition to 23-07? Mr. Spear, is there any additional information on this?
No additional information.
And I'll close the public hearing, and I will take a motion on replat 23-07.
Make a motion to approve Design Review 2307.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Donna, would you please call for the vote?
Chris Jamrose?
Yes.
Drew Cash?
Yes.
Woody Emmons?
Yes.
Sam Cressy?
Yes.
Drew Johnson?
Yes.
Kathy White Gaddich?
Yes.
Mike Portalese?
Yes.
And Chris Doherty.
Yes, and replat 23-07 passes unanimously. Brings us to the next item, which is DR 23-01, a request submitted by Front Street Opportunity Fund LLC requesting a waiver from Mishawaka City Design Review Ordinance, Section 105-74 signage plan limitation, and Section 105-80 temporary wall mount banners for 365 West Front Street, Mishawaka, Indiana. Hello.
Hello, good evening, everybody. My name's JP Wilgus, office out of 1130 South Bend Avenue, South Bend, Indiana. Here on behalf of Front Street Opportunity Fund, LLC. We are seeking a waiver for the city design, sign ordinance to add 2 blade signs on our building. You kind of can see right over here in front of the mill. Those will be on the south and the east side. Additionally, we are also seeking a waiver for marketing signage on the temporary construction fence. This will be now leasing website, when to expect the apartments coming about. I'm happy to answer any questions.
How long would your banners be up?
The banners,
Marketing.
we're expecting to go live with the property April 1st at this time, so just a few months.
Did I read that there was a 120-day total, there's a limit to 120 days in total to the banners? Did I understand that correctly?
I thought I read there's no limitation to it, but 120 days is more than enough for the temporary banners.
Are those banners going to be attached to where they can't flop?
Correct. So there's a special screening that gets printed. It's got little metal grommets on it that attach to the construction fence, both top, bottom, and the sides to secure it.
Okay, when you say wall mount, I thought they were going to be on the building.
The blade signs will be permanent fixtures on the building. The marketing signs are just temporary on the construction fence around the perimeter.
Okay,
Until the permanent ones go up.
Those are just temporary marketing materials to get the name out there. The permanent ones will be the 2 blade signs that will be on the south and the east side of the building.
okay. I really don't understand your signage that you're going to be on the building.
So if you
I
can,
see where it's at.
Yep.
But I don't understand when you have signage, what is it doing? Is it advertising or what? Why does it have?
It's the name of the building, just like the mill has up top on their building. Our building's called the Avalon, which you can see here is the blade sign that'll run parallel.
Okay, so it is a fixture, it's not a.
It is a permanent fixture.
It's not what you're calling in here. A banner. It's not really a banner.
Correct. This is part 1, the permanent fixture that will remain with the building. Part 2 is the marketing banner that will be on the existing construction fence
Okay.
surrounding the perimeter.
Okay.
Once the building goes live in April, those temporary banners will be removed.
Okay, well, I was thinking that, why would you have a banner on the building?
Right.
As a permanent fixture, okay. Thank you for the
No problem.
clarification.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Mr. Wilgus? Thank you for the
Thank you for
presentation.
consideration. Appreciate it.
Is there anybody else in the room or online wishing to speak in favor of Design Review 23-01? Hearing none, is there anybody in the room or online wishing to speak in opposition to Design Review 23-01? Is there any additional information, Mr. Spear?
No additional information.
We'll close the public hearing, and if there's no further discussion, I will take a motion on Design Review 23-01.
I'll make a motion to accept Design Review 23-01.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Donna, would you please call for the vote?
Chris Chambliss.
Yes.
Drew Cash.
Yes.
Woody Emmons.
Yes.
Sam Cressy.
Yes.
Drew Johnson.
Yes.
Kathy White Gaddich.
Yes.
Mike Portalese.
Yes.
And Chris Torty.
Yes, and Design Review 23-01 passes unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to the last item on the agenda, which is Design Review 23-07, a request submitted by Local 1191 Real Estate Company requesting a waiver from the Mishawaka City Design Review Ordinance, Section 105-115, fences and walls for 125 South Hill Street, Mishawaka, Indiana. Hi, is there somebody online to present this design review? Nope, nope, oh, Doesn't sound like it. Is there anybody in the room wishing to? I don't think so. All right, so we will move this. All those in favor of moving design review to the next meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we will push design review 23-07 to the next meeting. Is there any old business, Mr. City Planner?
None.
Any new business?
None.
Privilege of the floor. Does anybody in the room or online have anything to speak about that is not on the agenda items tonight? Then I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second, anybody?
Fast.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.